Scouts Victoria respectfully acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Victoria where our activities take place today. We pay our respects to elders both past, present and emerging, and continue to recognise and embrace the important continuous history and connection to land and community of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Scout Quest. I'm Brendan and from first year of Campbell Scout Group, and I'm a Venturer Scout. Today we are again seeing inside the barn at the RSPCA and getting to meet more of the animals and hear their rescue stories. We're also hearing from Mark, who is an inspector at the RSPCA. So let's get started. First, I'd like to introduce Mark. Welcome to Scout Quest, Mark.
Thanks, Brendan.
So tell me, what does an inspector do?
We obviously, as an inspector, work for the Royal Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. And what we do is attend to properties whereby we've had reports come into us of potentially an animal being neglected, abandoned, not being provided with appropriate treatment. So the properties that we attend can be residential in townships in Melbourne and right out into the regional areas of Victoria. We attend to all animals, all your domestic animals, your cats, your dogs, rabbits, guinea pigs, livestock animals such as sheep, goats, alpacas, and horses also. The minimum or the minimal amounts that might be on a property of specific species of animals. So we will deal with camels, cows, etc. And upon attending to a property, we obviously have to determine whether there's any breaches to the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, which is what we can apply when we attend a property. So this entails food, shelter, water, and the provision of any veterinary treatment that the animal might be required. We will obviously deal with we'll speak to the owner, and we will get compliance from an owner to provide what they need to correctly for the animal. In certain cases, obviously, an owner might not want to fully comply, so we'll use the legislation that we can, and in certain cases, we'll end up seizing animals from them, and we then take them to court, whereby a magistrate will then impose fines on them. The inspectorate is made up of around about 22 inspectors that are actually on the road. So they cover, as I said, the regional areas of Victoria, and also into the heart of Melbourne, into the metropolitan areas. The inspectorate does cover an awful lot of mileage throughout the year, travelling from property to property. We are divided up into regions, so there are more of a cluster of inspectors that are based around the Melbourne area, but I actually live and work around the Bendigo area, and then we have inspectors that are further out up towards Horsham and down towards Warrnambool and Colac area, and then on the other side of Melbourne down through Gippsland. I think that's probably my role in the inspectorate in a very, very small nutshell. But is there any, maybe we go to questions.
Yeah, we can do that. One to a, okay. So where exactly do you do work in?
The region that I actually cover is Bendigo, which is northwest of Melbourne, probably around about a 2-hour drive northwest of Melbourne. So the way that we actually divide the state up is the Bendigo region covers a number of council municipalities. So I have about 5 councils that I actually attend to, and then the Horsham Inspector will obviously go up to from Horsham up to Mildura. So we've got the whole of the state covered. It will just obviously take a little bit of time for us to get from one property to another, given the extensive travelling that we do. Metropolitan Melbourne is a little bit easier to get to from job to job, purely because of the density of the population.
Nice. So as a whole, what's your favourite part of the role?
I enjoy all aspects of the role, to be honest, Brendan. With the technology that we've got these days, obviously, I work from Bendigo, so obviously we've got internet that we can go to, so we get jobs in. We determine potentially before we've even gone to the property what breaches of the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act might be applicable. We've got a pretty good idea from what we've been told in the report, what we're going to look at and what animals are actually going to see. And then from there, it's engaging with the owner of the animal. And if there are breaches, then it's gaining compliance to make sure that animal's welfare is catered for moving forward. If, as I said earlier, if the compliance is not able to be sought or the owner doesn't want to comply, then we do have the powers to remove those animals from them. And obviously by removing the animals from them, they're taken into our care, and the welfare is then taken care of by the RSPCA.
Cool. Yarragon Goats asks, do you deal with goats often?
We get quite a number of goats related reports into us. Yes, they're probably they're not high up on the scale of the reporting that we do get. However, the nature of the reports that we get for goats would predominantly be the tethering of goats, I would say. There is a code of practice that goats come under, which they are, as with any animal that you can tether, be provided with food, shelter, water at all times, and exercised.
Cool. Personal question, do you have a favourite animal?
Do I have a favourite animal? I actually enjoy all animals. I do actually have horses myself and a couple of cats. I've unfortunately lost my dog a short while ago, but looking at replacing hopefully in the near future. But I've got an affection for all animals.
Nice. That's a good part of the job. And last one, to become an inspector, do you have to do any sort of course?
A lot of it is ongoing training. When you first join the inspectorate, you become a probationary inspector, and the probationary is for 6 months, in which case you have to learn the Act and the application of the Act, which is the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. And obviously there's a whole myriad of training that you undergo whilst you are on probation. Obviously, a lot of animal qualifications does actually assist in order for you to understand the various animals that you do go and investigate on properties, and understanding what their requirements are and what treatment plans are potentially required.
Well, that's it for the questions. Thank you so much, Mark, for coming in and being here today and sharing.
Okay, thank you very much, Brendan.
All good. Next, we're going to catch up with Emily and Jess again at the RSPCA, and they're going to introduce us to more animals. Welcome back, Emily and Jess, and we can't wait to meet more of our animal guests.
Hi guys, welcome back to our RSPCA Education Barn in Burwood East. We're very, very excited to have you back here. I'm wondering if you remember, my name's Emily, hello. And we also have the lovely Jess. Hi, Jess.
Hi, everybody.
And Jess, you brought an animal for us to meet. Now, we heard from Mark the Inspector that looks after lots of animals and helps animals that are suffering or perhaps their owners aren't looking after them well. And that's part of the reason why we've got some of our barn animals to speak to you about today. So who have you got for us first to talk to us about?
So I brought you my special friend Gus. He's a mountain Welsh pony. So he, like was spoken about before, he's one of the animals that came into the RSPCA through the inspectorate. So he was rescued. So Gus was found about 15 years ago or so on a property in Victoria, and he was not in the best condition. You could see like his fur looked really bad, and you could see fur was on the ground, so it looked like that Gus had been rolling a lot. And then we found the reason that Gus was rolling around a lot more than normal was because he was trying to get off his feet because he had overgrown hooves. And the reason for that was, it was really sad. Gus's owners abandoned him, and they decided to move to Western Australia and not take Gus with them, which is really sad. Gus is a beautiful soul. So he needed a person who's called a farrier, who needs to file down their hooves about every 8 weeks. So Gus had about 3 months worth of overgrown hooves, which made his feet really sore, and he kept trying to lie down to get off his feet.
I think, Jess, that Michelle has some images for us to show us of Gus and Gus's feet, and even a photo of Gus and the farrier.
Yeah, so that farrier is Mick. He's our wonderful farrier. He still looks after Gus after all these years. So you can see in the photos how long they were. They're almost looking like long little gypsy shoes. So it makes them really, really sore. So Mick did a wonderful job, and he fixed Gus's feet. And you can see here, this is how Gus's hooves are supposed to look like. There we go. Yeah, so see how nice and short they are, nice and comfortable. So to put it into perspective, it would be like if you had a really long toenail that grew touching the ground, was really sore, and you weren't able to cut it off and file it down. So Gus has been in our care in the RSPCA education program for about 15 years. We absolutely adore Gus, and believe it or not, he looks really stunning. He's in a great condition. Gus is actually what we call him our little old man. So Gus is quite old for a horse his age. Gus is, believe it or not, 41 years old. So yeah, Gus is older than me. So he's had a nice long life. And we had a big party when he celebrated his 40th and his 41st, and we cannot wait for it to celebrate his 42nd birthday as well.
He's in such good condition, Jess. So that really goes to show the amazing care that he's getting here at RSPCA. So you mentioned to us that he needs to have the farrier come and visit him every 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Is that the same for all horses or just for Gus?
Yeah, so that's it depends on the horse, but they're all about that. For Gus, as he's gotten older, we found that he's needed the farrier more for his hooves to file them down, because he's had a few ring bone issues, which has changed the shape of his hoof. So it all depends on their age and what they're going through, but it generally is about 6 to 8 weeks. For Gus, he's getting to about 4 weeks now. And then for our other horses, they are generally about 8 weeks that they need the farrier as well. Yeah.
So apart from the farrier, what other special care? So you mentioned particularly in Gus's older years, just like all of us, as we're getting a little bit older, some maintenance might be required.
Yes.
So you mentioned the farrier. What other regular care or special care do you guys provide for Gus and his pony friends?
Yeah, so another very, very important person that needs to look after Gus is the dentist. So horses need to see a dentist about every 6 months because their teeth continuously grow and they get sharp, and so the dentist gets this big file and they have to file down their teeth. So the reason you need a special horse dentist is they put them in a little kind of area to hold them there. They sedate them, which is really important. And then they open up their mouths. So they sedate them, keep them calm, and they can open up their mouths and keep them held open and have a look and see what's going on. So with Gus, we found out maybe about 2-3 years ago that his teeth, because he's so old, his teeth had been worn down so much, he pretty much has no teeth anymore. So with Gus, he can't eat hay, which is really important for their diet. So with Gus, we've made some adjustments, which he absolutely loves. So he gets what we got, like hay cubes, and we soak them in water and make them really mushy. So he's almost like he's getting baby food, and he gets it several times a day, because horses, the way their bodies are designed, they need to continuously eat and have food going through their system, similar to rabbits and guinea pigs. So for Gus, he gets little small meals throughout the day. And we also give him what we call hard feeds. So they're like pellets and such for horses. We soak that and make it nice and mushy like baby food. And he gets 3 smaller hard feeds throughout the day, which he loves. And we have, we call this Gus's face a cube face, where he'll be in his paddock, or if he's in the stall overnight, he sits there and he puts his face over and does big baby eyes, don't you, Gus? And that's to let us know. He's like, excuse me, I think my cubes are due. So this is super important as well. So also for like our ponies, our other ponies we get to meet, when they came in, they had also teeth issues as well, where their teeth weren't looked after by their previous owner. So the dentist had to file them down, make sure it wasn't like hitting the inside of their mouth. Because imagine having sharp teeth and having it rub against your cheek. It wouldn't be very
nice. And we learned, I think, last time about rabbits and guinea pigs having similar problems. Not that they need to have a dentist.
No.
They see the regular vet for those kind of problems. So Jess, does Gus actually live inside the barn?
No, so Gus actually, he's only in the barn overnight, but during the day he goes outside into a nice big paddock where he can hang out with his other horse friends as well. So we try to make sure that Gus has the happiest, best life possible. So he only had slept inside within the past year at night. So we decided to do that as he was getting older, so he could be warmer at night. And also we've got a beautiful little stable for him that's got
let's come over here, Sal, and
gorgeous.
let's have a look at when he does come inside to stay, like Jess was saying. This stable is a little bit different. A couple of things we can look at here. Firstly, can you see all that beautiful white fur on the ground? And that's showing you how much he's been shedding. And lucky for him, his carers have been brushing him to get that winter coat off, keep him nice and cool. But if we look underneath this sawdust here, we can see why this is a wonderful area for animals with sore feet, because if I push on that, that's rubbery. So it's nice and soft for horses or any animal really if they've got sore feet. So what's this called, Jess?
So that is a comfort stall. So that was donated to us by Hay Gain. So it's absolutely amazing, and it's been really good for Gus's feet, because as he's gotten older, his feet are a bit more sensitive to hard surfaces. So he comes in at night and he gets to stand on that, and it's like wearing nice little, I guess, like slippers for him every night. So he's standing on nice comfortable ground. So and also all that hair was just from us quickly brushing him just before the class. So he's shedding a lot at the moment, which is, I kind of really love spring because all the animals shed a lot of hair, and then we have to brush them every day, which is, you know, a lot of fun. It's not a bad chore at all to do, so he loves it.
That's good. Could you come to my house and brush my Pomeranian?
No. Yeah, sure. It's the same thing.
Do that. He's a bit difficult though. I'm sure Gus is a lovely client for you to brush.
He is. He loves it.
Well, because we are talking all things ponies today, and not to take the spotlight off our magnificent grandpa pony here, lovely Gus, do you think Gus might like to head back into his stall so that we can maybe meet some of his friends?
Yeah, I think he'd be more than happy for you to meet his best friends.
Oh, thanks,
Let's
Jess.
go back in, Gus, and I'll put you outside later, hey?
Now, interestingly, we heard all about Gus and his sore feet, and we heard about Gus's special care, and we even heard Gus's age of being 41 years old. And something I learned today, Jess, while I was doing a little bit of reading, did you know that ducks can live up to 20 years?
No, I didn't know 20 years.
They can, depending on the breed. Ducks, in fact, are pretty amazing. So we'll be learning a little bit more about ducks as we go on through our session today. So while Sally's got the camera on the beautiful dear man, what's your plan, Jess? Would you like us to come in there with you, or would you like the ponies to come out to us?
I can try to bring the ponies out to you, and so you can have a better look, because they're at the moment just having too much fun grazing. So I feel like you're not going to be able to see their beautiful faces while they're doing that.
Have a look at them, Sal. Come and have a look at these beautiful ponies that we're going to find out about in a minute.
You want to come out, Bonbon?
I can see some lovely comments coming up. People admiring Gus too.
Oh, how can you not? He's so beautiful. And he's also, I think, the kindest animal I've ever had to work with. He's just a sweet, sweet soul.
Absolutely.
Oh, Bonbon and Clyde, do you want to come?
And I think you can see it in his eyes.
Oh, yes.
He's a gentle man.
Look at you shedding away, Bonnie.
So, Jess, you've got some other pony friends now. Hang on a minute. So I think I know. We met Gus, who you said's 41. So these ponies must be babies.
Well, a lot of people do think they're babies. Believe it or not, they're not babies. Bonnie and Clyde are about 16 years old, and they're what we call mini ponies. So this is as big as they're going to ever get. And they're a lot younger than Gus. They are maturing adults, but they're definitely not babies. They might act like babies, but they're not.
They are so small, Jess. So before we get into their rescue story, I firstly am quite interested to know if I'm able to have one, please, in my yard.
No. So, sorry, Em. So ponies, even though they're little, they also need a nice big paddock, just like other horses. So they need to be able to graze all day. If you had one in your backyard, you would run out of grass straight away. They're absolutely, I don't know how they do it, but these two are an absolute pooping machines. They poo so much. I cannot understand how much they poo every day. So they need a nice big space where they can run around, where they can graze. So these two still need large paddocks, just like other horses do as well. They may be mini, but they're still horses.
Well, lucky I can still visit them. That's
and
good.
there's still a lot of work as well. They still need the farrier and the dentist as well. So do you think potentially their previous owners, so prior to coming to RSPCA, do you think their previous owners may not have understood the amount of work that goes into looking after horses? I think that it was just a lack of education. I don't think they really understood. It was similar to Gus. They had overgrown hooves, but unlike Gus, who didn't have much access to food, he wasn't too skinny, but with the minis, they had too much access to food. And for ponies, it seems like overfeeding is quite a bigger issue. They're more prone to putting on weight. So Bonnie and Clyde were actually really obese when they first were found. And people think, I'll just put them, in a paddock with grass and it's fine if it's up to my waist, they'll eat it down. But that was just too much for them, and it made them sick. And it also because they already had sore feet because they were overgrown like Gus, it was putting more weight on their sore feet as well. So some people just don't understand that they might be mini, but you really need to be have experience in looking after horses, or just to do a lot of research as well. You can't just go get a mini horse.
Sounds like a good idea, Jess. So at the moment, Michelle is showing up on the screen a photo of Bonnie when she was in her original paddock, where someone, just like Mark spoke to us about, someone in the community had seen the ponies and they had reported them to RSPCA. So what we're looking at here in the photos is, maybe if you could show that to Jess, just around like that, so she can talk us through it.
Oh, yes. So you can see like Bonnie, she looks a bit shaggy. It's hard to see her feet in that photo, but she's not as in great condition as she is here. And she was also there we go. So that would have been when she was found and brought into the RSPCA. So I think that looks like, Oh yeah, you can see like her fur, not in great condition. And you can also see some other ponies as well. Little Clydey. I think that they were also abandoned and left on the property, and not very well looked after. I don't think the owners understood that they still needed a farrier and they needed a good diet, and they weren't getting fed very well, which caused them, there's an issue called Laminitis. So that's where horses, if they can't digest sugar very well, so that's like grass can be really sugary. Not all horses get this issue, but ponies are really prone to it. So they eat grass, high in sugar. They can't digest the sugar properly, and the sugary bacteria, it gets absorbed into their bloodstream, and then it goes down into the muscles in their legs, and it causes them to become quite inflamed. And then it puts that inflammation in their legs. It's quite complicated, and it puts pressure on the bones in their feet. And you can feel it when they got laminitis. You put your feet around their hooves like this, and you can feel a pulse, and you shouldn't be able to, and it feels hot. You see they're struggling to stand. So that hotness and that pulse is putting pressure on their bone, and it's really painful. And if it keeps happening and you don't treat it, it can cause the bones to rotate in their legs, and it's quite a serious condition. So Bonnie and Clyde, luckily, they did get laminitis, but not too bad. We were able to treat them quickly, and through that was from filing down their hooves, making sure they're on a low sugar diet, which I know that they don't love it. They would love if we fed them whatever they liked, but they're on a very strict diet to try and prevent them from getting laminitic issues ever again.
So Jess, you were mentioning that sometimes this laminitis can get quite severe. So lucky for them, it wasn't too terrible, but some horses it absolutely can. So this is an example of an overgrown hoof of a horse that was like in this way, or without hoof treatment for 7 years. Such a long time, and it can be unfortunately a death sentence. But luckily for the ponies, and luckily for many other horses that have been rescued with this condition, we've been able to help them out and get them the treatment that they require. But that's just like a toenail, isn't it? It's like a really thick toenail.
So that's just the overgrown hoof part they were able to cut off that horse. Believe it or not, that horse survived. I remember when I first saw that, I was like, surely that horse didn't survive. That's so bad. But luckily the RSPCA was able to cut it off, and that horse has been adopted. They're able to fix its feet, but that's quite severe, and that would be quite painful. So that horse was really lucky it was found when it was. And that is just like, it's just a big overgrown like toenail pretty much. And I just can't imagine how much pain that poor thing would have been in.
And it does, you know, being a horse owner, you do need to pay a significant amount of money, not only to feed the animals, but also to provide the vet treatment and the regular farrier treatment too. So that's why obviously every animal that lives here is quite lucky, but that's why our inspector role is so important too, because a lot of it is education and just ensuring that the community understands what's required, hopefully before they get an animal or in the early stages, so that we can help them nice and early and prevent suffering, which is our main role here, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can see that these guys are such nice friends too.
Oh, they're soulmates. Gus is doing his cute face. I hope you can catch that on film. Oh, Gus. Yes, you're going to get food in a second. If Gus had his way, he'd get fed every minute of the day. Oh, Gus, you're putting on for the camera. Oh, look at those eyes. Sorry, I get distracted with his cute face. But yeah, it's very important for horses to have friends as well. And sometimes people only have one horse, and that's fine, because they might be riding them every day, spending time with them, which is also okay. As long as, if you only have one horse, as long as you spend a lot of time with them, because they're quite social. Bonnie and Clyde are absolutely obsessed with each other. They're heavily, heavily bonded. You cannot separate them, which is why I have them together. Gus does well on his own. But even when we have the dentist, it's really cute. We say if Bonnie's in the dentist machine, we have to have Clyde stand at the front for her to see him. So she goes, oh, my friend's here, I'm okay. And then when we swap, we have to have Bonnie at the front with Clyde so he can see her, because you can't separate them. They're very strongly bonded. They love each other so much.
That's a little bit how I feel about Chino. Last time we were all together with the scouts, you met Chino, my dog, and I feel I would like to take him to the dentist if that was possible.
Yeah. That's like these two. They're like, where you go, I go. So they're very sweet. They love each other. Even though Bonnie, she's a bit bossy to Clyde, but he lets her because he loves her so much.
So, Jess, while you've got your beautiful friends there, just I suppose finishing off with the pony chat, what do you think some key messages you would have for people at home, whether they've got animals like this, or whether they've got animals, they might have dogs or cats or birds or anything, coming up to the warmer weather.
Yes.
I know that's something that's quite a key issue at RSPCA, to make sure that people in the community know what to do for their animals when the weather heats up.
Yeah, so it's really important when it gets hot to make sure that any of your animals have access to shade, water, somewhere nice and cool they can be. Sometimes and look at what might be appropriate for the kind of animals you have as well. So like for our rabbits and guinea pigs, we give them frozen water bottles. For our chickens, we might give them frozen food like corn and watermelon. For our ponies, we make sure that they get fly masks on, that they're nice and cool. If it's extremely hot days, we'll bring the horses in as well under the coolers. So it's really important, shade, water, and to keep a close eye and monitor your pets on those really hot days as well, to make sure they're okay. And they might need to come inside as well. If they mainly live outside, they may need to come inside just to keep cool. And
checking that water all the time. I find my animals drink so much water. I'm constantly filling up bowls and buckets for them, particularly in the hot weather. So keep that in mind if you're feeling hot during the summertime, or even, when it's beyond, 20, 25 degrees, you might be thinking, if I'm feeling hot, it's likely that my animal is feeling hot too, and what can I do for them? So really, really important messages there. Thank you, Jess. Now, anything else you'd like to share with us about the ponies? Because I reckon soon we will go on to mentioning our duck campaign, and then it might be some question time.
Yeah, well, what else? Interesting facts about them. It's also good to monitor their poo. It sounds disgusting.
No.
Ooh, but it's really good to monitor their poo as well. So we always do fecal egg counts. So we try to make sure they don't have worms. And when Bonnie first came in, she had really runny, gross poo from her terrible, terrible diet. So that now that's under control. I just like to throw in poo messages whenever I can, because I know lots of people go, ew, gross. But it's super important. My job involves a lot of poo as well. But also, horses do love toys. Just before having Bonnie and Clyde up here, they had a treat ball and they rolled it around. So they like to play with toys as well. So enrichment is what we call it. So it's just to stimulate their mind. So that's also really important for horses as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Thank you, Jess, for explaining that. When you're talking about poo, do you ever find that they get poo stuck in their hooves? And is there anything else we need to be checking for in terms of their hooves?
Yeah, so they do get poo in their hooves. Bonnie likes to dig around in her poo, and I do every single day with all the horses, and I've already done it this morning. I clean out their hooves. It's really important. So, Em, would you mind holding Clyde for me? I know, just because Clyde isn't the easiest to pick up his hooves. These two can be a bit naughty. So I'll try and show you if Bonnie will be a good girl today. There we go. So I did clean them out. She's just got some stuff there. So that's called the frog. And I like to dig it out either side of the frog. So the frog's like a shock absorption. So that's so when she steps on the ground, it expands, and that relieves pressure off the hoof. So that way, that's the outside part. So this frog, we need to make sure we don't dig into it. So I clean it out. Bonnie, because of Bonnie and Clyde, how they were treated, and they had really sore hooves, their feet are quite sensitive. So sometimes they get stones in it. So every single day I clean them out first thing in the morning to make sure they don't have stones in it from overnight, because it really hurts their feet. And sometimes I'll see them walking slowly like, oh no, you got a stone stuck. And Bonnie will get poo and mud stuck, and then she'll get a stone embedded in there. So I clean all their hooves every single day. So that's so important as a horse owner to do that. And then in winter, you don't want them to get like thrush in their feet from mud sitting there all day, every day. So that's super important with them. And it can be a bit tricky when they're can be little naughty ones who sometimes these two will rear up at me like, no, don't clean my hooves. They're like little dog syndrome. I feel like it's the same for mini ponies as well. They have a bit of attitude.
Well, and I can see Clyde's telling me now. All right then.
He knows his treat ball's waiting for him.
Thanks everyone for admiring me. I'm back now, back to my pen where the goodies are. So thank you, Bonnie and Clyde, for sharing your gorgeousness with us today.
Bye.
Bye. Something I'd like to talk to you guys about is a campaign we're running called Discovering Ducks. Now, the last kind of week or two, I've been learning lots of things about ducks, including, we were talking about horses' feet today. Did you know ducks' feet don't have any nerves or blood vessels in them, so they can't feel cold? So that means that they don't get cold with their feet, and their soft down feathers underneath those waterproof feathers that are at the top, the soft underneath feathers, like an undercoat on a dog, if you're thinking about that. But for a duck, they stay dry all the time. So they've got all these really clever ways that they've adapted to their environment. And, just so excited about ducks, sorry, because I'm learning lots about them. They can even fly up to 80 k's an hour, which is like a car on the freeway, guys. So given that we're so excited about ducks here, we're asking our community to discover ducks. And we want you guys to visit discoverducks.org.au. And on there, you can learn about ducks, particularly some Australian native ducks. You can then take the quiz to see how much you've learned, and you can find out which duck, in fact, you are. Which I found out which duck I was. I'm going to take it again. I love all ducks, though. So please go and visit discoverducks.org.au, and soon you will be able to share your pictures when you've spotted ducks around your neighbourhood. So we're encouraging people, look out for ducks in your neighbourhood, take photos of them and share them to Instagram with your adults, of course, because we'd love to see where you're seeing ducks in your community. And hopefully there's been a picture up on the screen about that. Thank you very, very much, Michelle, for doing that. Another thing we're asking people to do you like writing? I'm wondering if any grade 3 to 6 kids like to write. We've got a writing competition called Pawsome Stories that we're asking kids to get involved in and you might write about rescuing an animal, or you might write about animal welfare. So if you go to the Pawsome Stories website, you can read all about that. There's some great judges and some great prizes, so we'd love to hear your animal stories. I believe it might be question time, and I'm going to head over to the computer so I can see if, in fact, we're on the way to question time.
Yeah,
all right.
We can do that. Georgina's story asks, can you ride any of the ponies here? Or
what a great question. So can we ride any of the ponies here, Jess?
So that is a really good question. We do get asked that a bit. So we don't ride any of the ponies here. And the reason is that they've retired. They've also got, they've had their feet issues. So it might be too sore for them to have anyone sitting on their backs. So for Gus, I'm pretty sure he would have been a children's pony. He's a typical pony that children would have had growing up. And I'm sure he's had lots of beautiful children riding him. But because he's an old man now, we decided that he doesn't need anyone riding him anymore. So they retire. And I just don't feel like the minis would tolerate anyone on their backs. I don't think it would be worth the risk. So no one gets ridden here.
Good question, though. Thanks, Georgina.
Jan Black asks, because Gus is 41, how long does a horse normally live for?
Oh, Jan's onto it. Thank you, Jan. So, Jess, you mentioned that Gus is 41, and Jan's remembered that piece of information, so that's wonderful. You also mentioned that he's kind of like our old man, our grandpa pony. Yeah. So perhaps Sal, try to block his ears very gently. But how old would you expect a pony to live for, Jess?
So say, how everybody says, if a dog in human years would be such and such. For Gus, being 41 in human years, I would say he'd be well into his 100s. So Gus is actually quite an old horse. So they do, there have been some ponies that would, like Guinness World Records, live to 60, but we generally, that he would live to, 40 is very lucky, and I think each year we have Gus is very lucky to have him. So they generally, 40 is quite an old age. And then larger horses, like, the big thoroughbreds, racing horses, for them, the life expectancy is usually about 30-ish. They could live a bit longer. So Gus is well and truly beating the pony life expectancy. He's kicking butt and he keeps going. So yes, he's a very old pony. So it's about this age. You'd be very lucky to have a pony.
I think he knows how well loved he is.
Oh, he's so loved.
So
you can see his beautiful face. He's like, feed me now.
Thank you, Jan, for that question.
Daniela Taglieri asks, how could one volunteer at the RSPCA?
Oh, I'm so glad Daniela's thinking about volunteering. It's such a great thing to do. So from the age of 16, I believe it is now, you can apply to volunteer at RSPCA Victoria. All you need to do is go to rspcavic.org and there is a button on there that says Get Involved. And that will take you to some descriptions of what kind of roles might be available, at which RSPCA site they might be available. So we would ask people to have a look on there, see if there's a role that's appropriate, and then you can apply through the website. Usually roles do come up in the barn. Jess, I'm sure you value your volunteers greatly.
Oh, I love my volunteers, and I try to make sure there's a lot of cleaning, a lot of feeding, but I always try to reward them so they can get some TLC time with the animals. So I love my volunteers. We treat them like family. They are super important, and the barn, and I'm sure the whole RSPCA could not run without our volunteers.
Absolutely right. We've got lots more volunteers than paid staff. And so apart from barn work, some people volunteer to walk dogs, other people volunteer to spend time with cats, and of course, as Jess mentioned throughout our visit today, lots of cleaning when you're working with animals. But of course, we do it because we're trying to make sure that they have a really good quality of life. And by making them a clean space and giving them lots of good food, that's one way or some ways that we can achieve that.
Cool. Yaragon Goats again asks, to work with horses like Gus at the RSPCA, do you need a specific study like Bachelor of Equine Science at uni?
Oh, this is good, Jess. I can see people are thinking about careers with animals, which is wonderful. How would you answer that question? What kind of studies would you need to do?
Yeah, like an equine study would be good. I think find what your passion is, and there's a lot of different courses out there with animals. For example, we run Certificate 2 in Animal Studies. So for me to get my job working with Gus and all these beautiful animals, I actually didn't study. I won't go into it. It's a very, very long career path that I had. But one of the reasons I got the job was I did have a Bachelor of Environmental Science, but I also had a lot of large animal handling experience, and that's through volunteering. So a degree is important, and find the one you think's right for you. But also what is just as important is volunteering, getting the experience, because you could have the degree, but if you don't have any experience actually feeding, cleaning, handling animals, then someone else who does is more likely to get that job. So I highly recommend, if you really want to work with animals, volunteer as soon as you can, especially you guys at such a young age. If you start volunteering, you're also years ahead of other people who might only think about it in their last year of studying somewhere. So it's so important. So I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yep, you'll hear that word a lot.
Yeah.
Volunteer.
Because I did as well. I did so much volunteering. I joked when I started working here that I volunteered more than I got paid employment when I started. So volunteering is super important.
So good. And you might be thinking, but I'm too young. I can't volunteer yet. I'm not 15 or 16 yet. But don't you worry. There are things you can do for animals, like collecting goods, planning fundraisers, with your Scouts group or with your school group. So definitely that Get Involved tab on rspcavic.org will help you with a few more ideas.
Coolio. Stacey Lee asks, what kind of ponies? What breed?
Oh, great. Now, I'm hoping some people can put their thinking caps on to remember. Now, at the moment, you're looking at Gus's nostrils, and Gus is a Welsh mountain pony. That's who we're looking at right now. And our beautiful ponies, Clyde and Bonnie, they're mini ponies. Now, I believe there also is a name for Bonnie's colouring. Is it a paint colouring?
Yeah, it's a paint colouring.
Yep. So, interesting mini ponies. Unfortunately, just to reiterate, unfortunately, I am not able to have a mini pony at my residential property. So, sorry, guys. I'm more sorry for myself. I'll get over it. It's okay. I'll have dogs. All right. Thank you for that question. That was great.
Well, that's all good. Let me try this. Mariana Quinton, sorry. How big do the horses grow, and what's the difference between a pony and a horse?
Oh, good one, Marianne. You've got that. That's a great one. How big do the horses grow, and what are the differences between ponies and horses?
Yeah, so horses can grow quite large. They can get as big as what we measure in hands. So that's a measurement. If you look it up, it's like a certain amount of inches. And so for horses, they can be as big as, or as little as like 5 hands, which is like the mini ponies. And then you can get a horse as big as like 18 hands, which is like a huge racing horse, absolutely mammoth. And so they can, we have a big horse. We used to have a big horse here, Henry. He was about 17 hands, and he was a big racing horse. And there were horses even bigger than him, which is crazy. And the difference between horses and ponies is ponies just really a name to describe a smaller horse. So they're exactly the same. They're just a smaller version. So it's up to a certain measurement of hands that describes that's a pony. And it just means that they're, small version of a horse.
Not a baby horse.
Not a baby horse.
I wonder if anyone at home is going, I know the name of a baby horse. I know what it's called, Emily. It's not a mini pony. It's a foal, hopefully. I wish I could hear what you were saying, guys at home, because I bet you're yelling at me. It's a foal, Emily. Don't be silly. All right, fantastic. Are there any other questions that we can answer for you?
Well, there's one more from me.
Great.
So for ponies like Gus, who have the foot condition and they have the special paddock, is that the only case, or are there more animals like Gus who have those foot conditions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Brendan. So how common is it for horses to come in with hoof problems?
Yeah, it's actually really, really common. And I think the reason is because the hooves are just so important to them being able to survive. So if they had like an injured hoof and you weren't able to fix it, then the horse isn't going to be able to survive because they're on their feet all the time. Like you never see 3-legged horses, and that's the reason is their hooves are just so important for them to be able to walk around, to eat. So if they can't walk, they can't really graze, they can't eat, then they get really sick. So that's why we do see it quite a lot where people either feed them the wrong diet and they get laminitis, or they don't realize or can't afford a farrier to regularly file down their hooves. And I feel like pretty much every single horse that's ever come through the education has had either laminitis, overgrown hooves. Our old big thoroughbred horse Henry had cracked hooves as well, and he had to get special horseshoes made for him. So his was a little bit overgrown, but his was breaking. So the hoofs, they're just so important, and because of, I guess, how important they are, we do see a lot of issues with them throughout the RSPCA. I feel like I'm just guessing, but I feel like 90% of the horses or more that come in through the inspectorate have hoof issues. Yeah.
You might be surprised to know, and I'm not sure if Mark addressed this, Mark, our inspector, out of all the animals that are reported to RSPCA Inspectorate in Victoria, the highest reported, so the most number of animals that come in are dogs through our inspector cases. Second highest animal that gets reported for neglect or cruelty, guess what? Horses. So quite commonly, as Jess mentioned, definitely hoof issues. Often inspectors are going out to see them for inappropriate food, water and shelter, and of course veterinary treatment.
And a big problem that will be coming up over summer as the grass dries up and such is which is probably, apart from hoof issues, probably the second biggest issue for horses is starvation. So we have had like our previous horse Henry was being starved for different reasons. He looked like he had lots of grass, but he actually had a lot of worms. But we're finding as summer comes and we have less hay, and the price will go up for hay because it'll be more expensive because there's not much hay around, then people might not be able to afford it. And sadly what happens is, which we see again and again and again, people, instead of reaching out for help, they'll just let their horses starve instead. So we've seen it quite a lot, and it's really sad. So that's also another, apart from feed issues and being fed the wrong diet, we also get a lot of horses not being fed at all, which is really sad.
So I think what I'm hearing here as well is not only if you see an animal that needs help, to talk to your adult, and then they can ring up RSPCA or put in an online complaint. But also if you're someone that's finding that you're having trouble looking after your animals, it's always a good idea to reach out and ask for help, because there is help available.
Yeah, the RSPCA can definitely help and find ways to help you. It's better than your animals starving. Not that I don't think any of you guys would let that happen, as you're logged on and so interested watching this.
So good. Thanks, guys. I'm going to turn back over to Brendan and just check in and see if he's got any other questions for us before we finish our session.
Yes, from Stacey Lee. What part of the horse do you use to measure by hands?
Oh, good one.
So we measure from the bottom of their hoof and to the shoulders. So that's how you measure the hands. So you can get like a tape measure out. You'll find that there are a lot of experienced horse people that don't even measure. They just go, oh, that horse has this many hands. But yeah, from the bottom of the hoof to like the wither, you can measure, and that's how you can figure out the hands as well. Also, if you like, you can also research and do a little Google to get it into your head to kind of go, oh, how many hands is this? If you Google it and just look at different horses, it'll tell you around how many hands. It's an old-fashioned way of measuring horses, and we still just stick with it. So it's very confusing that, when we use the metric system and we're about centimeters and all that stuff, that's a good way to kind of go get the hands idea into your head. But that's also the way that they do measure the horses.
Interesting. It's fascinating, because I'm sure my hands are different from other people's
hands. Yeah, it's
hands,
not literally our own hands. So if you need like a tape measure to find out how many inches and stuff, then you work out the hands.
Very interesting though. Thank you for explaining that, Jess. Okay. And I'm turning back to our computer screen here so that I can check in and find out if there's anything else we can do.
Yeah, those are some really good questions actually, everyone. And thank you so much for your time today, Emily and Jess.
Thanks, guys. We've really enjoyed seeing you again. And, I'm excited to actually look back on this video on YouTube. But I think right now I might go and look up a bit more duck information, because they're much more interesting than I might have first thought. Awesome.
Yes,
all right, Sally's off with Bonnie the pony there, who's probably going to do an appropriate farewell from us. Thanks, guys. And we look forward to seeing you next time. We'll have to lock in a date where we can jump back in and introduce you to some more animals. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, that's that from Emily and Jess. And I would also like to thank everyone here watching today. Hopefully, we will also see you again at the statewide ARAP at Thursday, 7 p.m. live on both YouTube and Facebook. It'll be an amazing celebration of the last 12 months. We will also hear from scouts from all sections and on their journeys. If you wish to join us, you can do so by registering now at www.scoutsvictoria.com.au/ARAP 2020. Hopefully, we'll see you all Thursday night.